Hello and welcome to Global Mike. My name is Thuku Karaoke, and today we are going to have a guest who is our first lady, Chrystal. Chrystal and myself, we worked together 10 years ago.
Yes.
Doing a lot of great and brilliant things around Africa. But I will let Chrystal introduce herself and tell us what she is up to nowadays.
Okay, thank you for having me. I am Chrystal Onkeo. I am a journalist, producer. Basically, I've been in the media and journalism industry for over a decade now. I met Thuku at work, and we had a good working relationship. We had really good times. I'm still in the media industry, but over the period of time, I've been able to do various things, ranging from journalism to production, behind the scenes work, and I'm still here.
I'm more interested in the behind the scenes. What's that?
So basically, when we were working together, I used to do a lot of on-screen stuff. I was a presenter for Africa Journal, and of course, also doing a lot of field production for the Pan-African stories that we used to do for the magazine show. But after that, I ended up joining a local 24-hour news channel, and there the bulk of my work was mostly behind the scenes. So a lot of production work, a lot of logistics work, making sure that the shows that we have on air, most of the shows that we had actually were news bulletins and current affairs shows. We also had a lot of talk shows. We had a lot of also outside broadcasting productions. Yeah, so a lot of that, basically.
Good. And I want us to pick from what you're doing nowadays, because we've been telling people that at the end of it all, the most important person is the storyteller, because they live to tell the story, which gets to a lot of people, drives and provokes action. So recently, what have you been doing? And how interesting has that been?
Well, I'm currently working for the Chinese state TV media. It's called CGTN Africa in the Nairobi bureau. So basically what I do is I'm not only a journalist, I'm also a writer, I'm also an output producer. So that means that while you watch the bulletins, I'm the one involved in the what is it called? Cooking the show,
so it's everything
preparation of the show. The bulk of my work is writing, so I just repackage stories. I put things together just to make it palatable for the bulletin. Aside from that, we have the lower third graphics, the supers that I do that as well. I do a lot of coordination of live crosses, should we have them as well. Also the final checks as we are going on air for any errors and all that. So that's what I do. And a little bit, like I'm beginning to dip my toe back into field production, but so far so good. That's what I currently do.
At whatever production level you are, there is always something interesting that you notice when you're doing your work. So you can tell us, like maybe for the last, like 6 months, what are the interesting stories you've picked, and why were they interesting to you?
Well, I don't know if I should call them interesting, because what I've also noticed about my line of work is that you come across a lot of bad news. There's always so much happening. I mean, I've been covering Sudan since the war broke out a bit like 2 years ago. I remember even when Hamas first attacked Israel, where at the festival when
that was last year?
Initial like 2
the
years
initial,
ago.
Okay, the initial attack.
I remember I was in the newsroom and we had to break that story. And of course the Israeli PM promising war, because that was a declaration of war. And of course, just following the story of how it has turned out up to now. We have that. We also have the conflicts in Congo, in DRC. Just looking at how people are suffering and all that. There's a lot of bad news out there. There's a lot of bad news. So for me, I think what I've been able to take from that experience is just to build my resilience, my mental resilience, because it gets to you at some point, because you actually cover people, real people. You get witness accounts, and a lot of things don't make it on air, but some of the things that don't make it on air, you actually get to interact with them. You get to interact.
You are basically the person who makes them not to get on air, because sometimes you're protecting your audience as well. You don't want like to push everything to and also the ethical part of it.
Partly yes, but also partly. We also operate with durations.
Exactly, time as well. We talked about we were with some other crew here last week or earlier this week, and we were talking about time and how time affects the news bulletins and all that. So
that's true. And also another thing that I came to realize is, depending on who you work for or who you work with, exactly. You also need to look at diplomatic implications of the work that you do.
Very true.
And that's why, of course, this is a very controversial thing that I'm about to say. When they talk of media freedom and balance and impartiality, that's a very tricky discussion to have and a tricky balance to have, because you also need to balance the interests of not only your employer but your country. Like, there's so many things to consider about how you're going to angle a story, or what you'll cover or what you'll not cover. So that has been also an interesting navigation point for me.
Sure. And having said that, I was watching the news this morning, international news this morning. There is a possible war that is going to be there in Iran. And we're also experiencing a lot of, political difficulties in Venezuela after I don't know whether you have interacted with either of the stories and what you got for us.
Me, what I have to say about the thing is that actually where I sit, you see geopolitical, what is it called? Muscling playing out in real time. You look at, Maduro has been captured, and, Trump is in Greenland, and all these other things, and how they play out in the global stage, and also just the implications of you see, like, how one superpowers and how they behave, like what the decisions they take and their policies, and how it affects all the other parts of the world. Even with the US saying that they are getting out of 66 international organizations, that will have great ramifications. Not only in the regions that some of these very crucial special programs operate, but also in terms of the very last person. You saw what happened when you said
it was a massacre here. As in, I know 1,000,001 people who just lost their
affected.
jobs overnight.
And especially if you have like programs that are intertwined with our governments, ministries and all that, it not only affects they've been talking about wastage and all that, and it's
which
there.
Is true,
it's there. But also on the other hand, we also have like these very vulnerable people who are going to be affected. People who have been, who are in dire humanitarian situations. People who have fled conflicts, and all that. So they really get affected, as well as even just the normal citizen who has nothing to do with the geopolitical.
Who knows nothing about that. Actually, a lot of people who don't even know that the programs they work for are funded by some of the international organizations.
Exactly. And you only now start seeing the ripple effects maybe a few months later, With the USA, it was so sudden.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Interesting times.
So when that is happening, the storyteller must always be there. The storyteller must always make people understand exactly what is happening. Like what you're saying, some of the people are working for organizations, they don't even know that are financed through some of the funds that are being cut out. So how basically do you navigate that as a journalist, or you and your fellow journalists? How do you navigate that to make sure that at least you don't become so, so emotional and personal? You have to make people understand. What is the bargain there?
Let me tell you something, what I've come to find out. And I don't know if this will sound heartless, but the thing about it is sometimes we just don't have time.
Yeah. True. I agree
you don't have time to be invested. As you're getting invested in the plight of refugee populations in northern Kenya, all of a sudden now you have to be a bit invested in children getting sexually assaulted in DR Congo, and then you have to get in, you all of a sudden now you're thinking about the dire situation in Sudan and how the battlefront is moving, how the RSF are, capturing cities, and now you don't have humanitarian aid flowing in or out, and then of course the geopolitical implications of maybe Israel acknowledging Somaliland?
Yeah.
And what that means, and does it mean that he wants to send Palestinians there? So there's always something. That's a good thing about working in news. You don't have time to dwell, but you need to be very, very aware that covering a lot of negative news also takes a mental toll on you as a journalist, because at the end of the day, you're a person.
Exactly.
When they talk about the effects of war on women, I'm a woman.
Yeah, so
And how children are being affected, that also would affect you, because you're like, the only difference between me and this person is my geographical location, basically. And, I'm lucky to live where I live. I thank the Lord, at least I've been able to be safe. But it takes a mental toll on you. So you need to be very, very deliberate about taking care of your mental health.
Exactly. You're mentioning something that I really actually wanted to ask you, because again, like I'm telling you, you've been interviewing journalists who have been on the front line, who will seeing people being shot and fall. How do you personally, take care of your own mental health, so that at least you remain sane even as you do your work?
Well, thankfully, I've not been on the front line covering war, in the true sense of the word. So at least I've been spared the gory details of watching things as they unfold. However, of course, I also get to interact with a lot of that content. What I do to myself is that I have taken self-care as something that's very deliberate to me. So one of the traits that I want to pick up, especially in this 2026, is journaling. If I can just reflect on my day. And I've actually made it a point to just look at the highlights of my day. So every day I ask myself, what were the highlights of my day? So that by the time I'm closing off the chapter, I am closing it on a high, because I'm getting to savor the joyful moments that are within my day. But over and above that, I'm lucky to work for an employer that at least I can be able to get some off days. I've worked for employers where even if you're off, you're still working, you can be able to take, how it can be really crazy. Or you're working very long hours and you really don't have time to shut off, and your off days. I mean, it can get intense. So I happen to work for an employer at least who, I have my off days, and my off days are my off days. So I don't expect to work. So I can really just unplug, to be honest. I unplug. I hardly watch news when I'm not, unless there's a story I'm following. But on a normal day, I hardly watch news, just because I need to switch off. And now plug into my maybe social community. That's the time I get in touch with my friends. Some of the activities I like doing, I like game nights and such things that force you to be in the moment. There's that, and then of course I also encourage people to have hobbies. Some of my hobbies, I like working with my hands. I mean, I've made dolls, I've made candles. Yes, I've dabbled in painting. I left it, but I need to pick it up again because.
How did you leave it? Time?
Yeah, and the pursuit of other interests. Anyway.
Who am I?
Yeah, so that, and I also happen to be a big lover of fragrance. That's a hobby of mine. So. Yeah, once in a while, there's a time I was making a bit of content, reviewing fragrances, and just basically telling people the basics of fragrance and how to appreciate fragrance and all that stuff.
So you're still doing that?
I mean, I love fragrances. I took a short break in terms of content creation. Also because I don't want to do it for the sake of doing it.
You want to have a purpose for
yes,
that.
Yes, I want to feel like, okay. And over time, I've gotten actually feedback, good feedback, which in case I do decide to get back on that horse, I know what to do because this is what my audience are asking.
Sure, that is true.
So it's quite interesting to just immerse yourself in a hobby. It makes you a well-rounded person, number one. Number two, if you've ever been laid off, you know the dangers of centering your whole identity around your career. For me, it's also just to be a wholesome person. Beyond being a journalist or a worker in the media industry, I am a friend. I am someone who loves fragrance.
You have your own community.
Exactly.
You have your own community that you can always interact with.
Exactly. I am just beyond that. And normally, when if you met me in the wild, I mean, my career is not the first thing. In fact, people usually learn about what I do after we've interacted a few times.
Okay.
That's not the first thing I lead with, because I feel like as a person, you need to also, the same way you take pains to build your career, you also need to build yourself as a person. Work on yourself, work on your personality, your triggers, your traumas, and then also work on interpersonal relationships, work on your hobbies, discover yourself, spend time with yourself, find out what you like, what you don't like, what you need to work on.
There are some sessions I attend for business people, and they always tell us that people interact with you, the person, not your job.
Yeah.
So the way you interact with people the first time, you know, the way you introduce yourself, not I'm Chrystal working for.
Yes.
That is not you.
Yeah.
They want to interact with you.
Yeah.
So, and again, to our dear viewers, especially the content creators and journalists and filmmakers, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what she's saying. And I want to take you back to, of course, like the last 1 or 2 years, there have been a lot of things happening in the world, a lot of crazy things actually, especially when it comes to major powers trying to test each other. What is one of the stories that you worked on and it left you wondering what is really happening? Like just one story that was crazy enough to like, not anymore, as in this world is coming to an end.
Let me tell you, if I don't even need to go like 2 years back.
Yeah.
I think if you look back maybe 2 years up to now,
Yeah.
you know, you always have those moments, you know, Russia, Ukraine war.
Yeah.
You know, and we saw the ramifications, how that affected everything, the price of petrol, the price of wheat, you know, and you saw how that played out. The Israel-Palestine, Gaza, whatever, also had its own ramifications. And now you had other spillover, you know, events like now Israel sending strikes to other countries as well. That are trying to, I guess, advocate for Gaza.
Yeah.
And you saw how that played out. You know, the Houthi rebels also re-emerging and how that's affecting like shipping, the shipping industry and all that. So, I don't know, man. I think every day is something new. Yeah. And the thing about it is, once something major happens, it almost sets a precedence of other things that are going to happen. For example, in the recent days, we've had Maduro being captured by the U.S., and now Trump says Venezuelan oil, you know?
Yeah, I was like, I was watching that and I was like, was it that, okay, I have followed the history of Venezuela for very many years, from when Hugo Chavez was president. And this one, I was like, was it that Maduro was a very bad guy, which maybe he is, or was it that there was another interest? So, I agree with you.
You see, the thing about it is, whether Maduro is a good or a bad guy, or whether he deserves what happened or not, that's the jury is out on that. We can always debate about it. But what precedent does that set? What does that mean? Does it mean a superpower can just come, abduct your president and take over your resources? You know? So there's a lot of news that happens, and you're like, what? So what does this mean? Exactly. In the grand scheme of things.
Sure, I agree with you. And actually, I think it's either yesterday morning or the day before, and I was just I wake up in the morning to watch like the developments, you know, overnight, because you know, when we are sleeping, some other people are very active doing some things that are not very good. And I was like, so the US can do anything they want?
That's the thing. Now, I mean, that's a valid question. That's a valid question. And remember, you also have other superpowers that are muscling to show their might.
Exactly.
You get. We have Israel. I mean, with all the strikes against all the countries, aside from, of course, what's happening in Palestine. We also have Russia, wanting to be acknowledged, and the new emerging superpower from the East, China. We saw how the tariff was played out, you know, and everyone flexing, you know. So basically, it's just a matter of wait and see. At this rate, you know.
Out there. Let's wait and see how tomorrow morning is.
And you just hope that you're not caught in the crossfire.
So how are you able to, because you see, when something happens, in most cases as a human being, you always pick sides, you see. But when you're a journalist, you cannot pick sides. Because again, you are talking to people on this side, neutral.
As I told you, please remember what I said before. It's very interesting to realize where you are in the grand scheme of political relations, diplomatically, where you stand diplomatically.
Okay.
That really affects how you're going to cover something. Because when you cover a certain story a certain way, say you give prominence to this side, and you don't give prominence to this other side, what does that mean? Does it mean, because as I'm here, I'm not Chrystal. I represent an entity.
Exactly.
I not only represent an entity that I'm working for, I'm also representing maybe even Kenya, because I'm Kenyan, right?
Yeah.
So that really drives how you're going to cover a story. And the good thing about journalism or just being in the media space is that we have gatekeepers.
Yeah.
So in case something misses my eye, like in case I'm not able to see the grand picture, if I'm not able to zoom out of the story and look at it from this angle, someone else will be able to look at it before it goes on air and say, okay, no, we shall kill this story.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to have this, then we better have this other person saying. Or we can't say, we can't call, for example, Turkey. We can't call Turkey. It's Turkey. So you have to have those considerations. And sometimes the editorial policy of where you work actually gives guidance on such things so that it's no longer about you. Yeah.
And then there are people like me who do what they want. So because today I'm working for Turkey, tomorrow I'm working for Germany.
Yeah, sure.
The other day I'm working for the US.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm able to say whatever I want.
Exactly.
And I'm able to pick sides, which is an advantage to me, not to you. So I want you to, we're going to wind up this first part. And I want you to pick some positive news that happened in the last 2 years and how that made you feel that amidst all this nonsense, at least something good is happening.
I'll just tell you actually a story that I did. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Well, there's a gorilla that had twins
Ooh,
at the Virunga National Park in DRC.
Okay.
You rarely hear good positive stories from the DRC. So that was nice because it's a semi-endangered species.
Yeah.
And they said that the twins are, they're healthy and it's just nice. It's good to hear something out of these other places where there's always war, conflict, and all that stuff. So yeah, that was something good.
Knowing you from our previous place that we worked together, you used to do a lot of health stories and women's stories as well. And I would want to pick it from you because you said yourself that you would want to go back to the field and do some field work more. Actually, that's how I know you more than the whatever, although you used to do a lot of on-camera stuff as well. So what do you want to chase when you go back to the field? When that happens?
Well, to be honest, most of the stories that I'm interested about need a bit of investigating, just a little bit of investigating or over time, because I actually like doing more long form stories because I feel like some of the elements that you would want to cover within a story, you end up removing them if you have to really contract,
okay, sure.
And then of course time gives you the leeway to play around with how you script, to a bit of creativity and all that stuff. So I'm hoping to do that eventually, but of course I need to start somewhere. There's actually a project that I did towards the end of last year, which I can't talk about until it goes on air.
We'll bring you back here to talk about it when it goes on air.
Yes, definitely. But basically, the stories that actually touch me a lot is just giving a voice to the voiceless. I remember one of my most proud projects. I did it in March of 2020. And beginning of 2021, actually March of 2020, was it's a story called Vulnerable Masculinity. Basically, how I came across the story was I noticed while I was doing my thesis, because I was doing content analysis using newspaper articles, I just came across a trend. I noticed a trend that towards the end pages of newspapers, you'd find a small article about, this boy was sexually assaulted, this boy. And I was like, okay, I've never actually seen someone actually dedicating time to do such a story in earnest. So I decided to pursue that story. I did it with one of my colleagues. Then he was called Lofty. So we had a discussion. And the reason we're doing that is because COVID. You know how COVID was.
Yeah, sure.
You can't all be in the office at the same time, and sometimes you get interviews confirmed while you're not supposed to be seen in the office.
Yeah.
So partnering with him actually was a good idea. He's a brilliant journalist. I think right now he currently works for NTV. So we decided to partner and to chase leads and to do, if possible, we would go to shoot the story together. Whenever it wasn't possible, say like he had to anchor or he was out of the office, then I would go and do the interviews, or he would go and do the interviews. Yeah, so we partnered and we did I did a story that I feel is the reason why you need to pursue journalism, you know. Yeah. So it was a story about how, you know, these boys experienced sexual violence when they were quite young, how it affected them in life. One is actually a man who has sex with other men, yet he has a wife and children. A very normal-looking man.
Yeah, like
on the street.
You cannot pick anything.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's able-bodied and stuff. So, you know, there are phenomena that you see, and you're like, why are you like this? Yeah. You know? Yeah. And sometimes in the course of your of work, once you talk to some of these people in the fringes of society that you never would ever get the chance to interact with, you tend to understand people more and to give people more grace. Anyway, so I met, it was a very sad story for me. I met a young boy who had been assaulted. It really affected him, like his development, his school, even how he performed in school, his behavior and all that stuff. And I got to interview someone else who was actually molested by his mother's husband while he was young. And I guess the cycle kept repeating itself, even in school and all that. And I felt like that story was important to be told because parents are very keen on protecting the girl child. They really, it doesn't occur to them that even boys are at risk. Now,
everyone thinks that the boy is strong enough, they can fight for themselves, which is not true.
No, actually. Because they're vulnerable. A young boy is vulnerable.
I agree
if you have, and most of the time, when you look at victims of sexual violence, the perpetrators are people who are well known to the victims. So it's someone you trust. In this case, it was someone who's supposed to be their father. You know? The small boy was just someone in the estate who they used to play around with, but a grown man, like someone who maybe would buy them sweets, play around with them, someone they trust.
Exactly.
You know? So it's hardly ever. And the other man, the one who I told you ended up having sex with other men, in adulthood, he was molested by his schoolmates while he was in high school.
And it was never picked. He never told anyone.
He dropped out because of the stigma. Because of the stigma. So I think parents need to be very keen. The same energy you take to protect your girls, also do the same for the boys. You know, I mean, even nowadays, grown men also get assaulted. Very so true. No one is like safe. Yeah. So I think people need to have that at the back of their minds. Some things that maybe you could do. Consider self-defense classes even for children. Just consider that. It might give you a little bit of an edge, you know.
And also, the other thing I also feel, Chrystal, is sometimes even us as parents, we are not able to like get into the space of our kids very well. We are not really able to interact with our children. So simply because you take your children out for swimming, for hired places and all that over the weekend, you still don't know them well. You need to have a better interaction with them, more than just the material provision.
Exactly. Let me tell you, and also investigate difficult behavior. Like the man that I interviewed, who was molested in school, he quit school and came to Nairobi.
So maybe the parents thought that this is a not case. He doesn't want to go to school.
Exactly, but he was not able to share what had happened to him. So investigate difficult behavior. Have a conducive environment where you can actually talk to your children, where they know this is a safe space. They can come to you with anything, and that is also good. Even so that even if they don't tell you what's going on or whatever traumas they're facing, you can be able to pick differences in their behavior. And maybe enlist professional help, you know, that kind of thing. So, so that stuck with me, and my heart breaks for a lot of people who, you know, are not able to, who have gone through that, and also the people who are not able to actually advocate for themselves. in the course of that story, I also met a deaf man who had been a victim of that.
Okay.
So can you think about people who are disabled? What happens to them and how they are not able to articulate, whatever they're going through. Yeah, so that's a story that stuck with me.
Wow, that was an awesome story. And I'm sure it made some of the impacts that you hoped that it could make, especially, helping people understand more of exactly what journalists are trying to say. Sometimes the stories are so personal. Sometimes it's something that you're like, this one must go out because you met with something that you feel it's not in very many people's living rooms.
Yeah, it actually made the shortlist for the Asia Awards then.
Awesome.
So it's a good thing to have, at least to have like in my career. But then on the other hand, I just felt like people it's a story that needs to be out there for people to know,
That is a story that needs to be out there. And parents, please, let us take care of our children. Interact more, know your children more, and be their friends. At that point, we are going to take our break. And we're going to be back with Chrystal, and she'll be telling us what she was doing when she was traveling. See you on the other side of Global Mic. Welcome back to Global Mic. We are talking with Chrystal, who's been a colleague 10 years ago. We worked together for like 2 years, or 1 and something.
Yeah, about 2 years.
About 2 years. And we traveled Africa. We told very positive African stories, and that is what we are getting into right now. So, Chrystal, talk to us about your first trip outside Kenya as a journalist.
Wow. Okay, so that takes me back many years ago. I first traveled for production to Senegal as my first trip outside the country. And it was so interesting because I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, I had done local productions. And as you know, about any kind of production, you always have like problems here and there that you're putting out, things you're doing, you're being flexible. Exactly. Exactly. So I just didn't know what to expect because here I am. I'm traveling by myself with all this equipment. I was working with a local Senegalese crew. That meant I had a Senegalese cameraman, and I also, thankfully, also had a fixer. So Senegal is a French-speaking country. Does Chrystal know French?
Not even a word.
I mean, I just know how to say bonjour. Parlez-vous l'anglais? Do you speak English? Very important phases to know if you're not a French speaker.
Sure.
Yeah. So with my that one sentence of French, I packed my bags and my cameras and off I went to Senegal. Yeah, so it was a very interesting experience for me, just being the other side of the continent, and just looking at how the differences in our culture, how people are doing. It's a very beautiful country. It's very beautiful. It's very enchanting. It's a place I'd actually want to go back to, but now not while working. I just want to go
as a tourist now.
Yes, as a tourist.
Go and just tour around.
Yes. So that was quite interesting for me. It was my first trip. It ended up being quite smooth, if I'm being honest, because I had a professional crew. Let me tell you a funny story. So, as you know, if you're traveling out of the country, you usually have to do reimportation, right?
Yeah, for the equipment.
Yes. So, Chrystal carried all this equipment and a list. And passed through the airport oblivious, and was just smiling at everyone. I went out and I came back.
I'm going to Senegal. You're behaving like a politician.
I was just there like, la. Okay. Luckily, of course, I feel like our airports already, like they can be able to tell this is a crew. Yeah. So I didn't get any hiccups or anything. And when coming back, I also just smiled past customs and I came back.
Wow. No one.
Only when I got to the office is when I realized, oh my God, I could have cost the company so much money simply because I did not know the procedure to follow for importation.
Oh,
of
okay.
equipment.
Yeah.
See God. I'm telling you, me, I've seen
Yeah,
miracles in my life.
There's a God out there. Who watches over you all
So
the time.
I think it helps that my equipment was looking a bit up. You know, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it
they
wasn't
wouldn't
the
have
new.
picked them as new equipment anyway. Like,
Yeah.
this is not new. Go.
Exactly.
Go home.
Plus, you know, because I thought I'd done everything, I
Yeah.
was very confident.
Okay.
You know,
You're like,
so they
this
just knew.
is. So let's go back to Senegal. Don't come
Yeah.
back yet.
Okay.
Pick one of the stories that you did there, because you see what we realized, and we worked with Chrystal when we were traveling Africa, which was quite an interesting thing.
Time, yeah.
Meet different people, different cultures, you know, different things happen in a different way, more than in your place. And for people like me who are better, you go and interact in the other places that we're not going to mention here. So, is there something? Is there a story that you picked that you were like, wow, this will end up being in my memories forever?
Let me tell you something. One of the things that really made me stop, and I don't know, just, I guess it had an impact in me, was a story that I did about coastal erosion. You know, most of us, or rather the majority, people have different dreams, but there's a big chunk of the population that you dream about retiring at the coastline in your nice house overlooking the beach and all that. Exactly. And just, you know, enjoying the sea breeze. I'm telling you, I saw mansions underwater. Yes, like sinking. You're seeing there's a balcony, there's a roof,
Which
there's
is
a what?
submerged.
Yeah, and different houses in different levels of submersion. So it was very interesting for me to see that, and also to just realize, you know what? At the end of the day, it's all vanity, you know. So that had, I think it's also an important story.
That is the Atlantic coast.
Yes, the coastal erosion on that other side of the world. So it's so bad. Like, we had so many houses and so many establishments actually submerged underwater, and also, of course, that affects other economic activities like on that coastline, like fishing,
even tourism itself.
Exactly. I spoke to a fisherman who told me that while he was a boy, like, where he lives was so far from the ocean, but now it's just like a 5-minute walk, you know. And so it makes you wonder, okay, wow, how do you stop this?
It reminds me of a story that we did either late last year of Lake Turkana, because we were driving all the way to Loyagalani in Marsabit. And the road network is completely cut off. So at some points, you have the car has to cross the river. And actually, our car swam into the river, and it had to be towed all the way back to Meru for repairs. Oh, God. So when you talk about the infrastructure that gets destroyed, I think there was a cooling plant for fishermen that was built by the European Union, which was, I think, over 50 million Kenya shillings, which was totally destroyed. Amongst people was, homes, homesteads. And there is a community called El Moro, which actually has been cut off from the other mainland part because it's not possible anymore. So, man, I totally understand what you're talking about. So come back from Senegal now. I've been to Gambia, which is at the extreme end of Senegal on the other side. It's like a small country inside Senegal because it's like less than 2 million people. Come back from Senegal. After that, what else do you do? Like, where else do you go?
I'm not ready to come back from Senegal yet. Let me tell you what else I found.
Do you have a visa?
Yes, on arrival.
Okay.
Let me tell you what else I found out about Senegal. Yeah. I just found out that the people there are very, very beautiful. Ooh. And the women actually then were the most fashionable. It was actually the most fashionable country in Africa then. Ooh. So it's interesting to see these things and to see them. By then, guys, those women were wearing lace front then. Lace fronts weren't in Kenya by then.
What's that?
If you're a woman, it's a wig. It's a human hair wig.
Okay.
So they had lace front. They were doing contouring. Guys, at that point, Kenyans were not wearing makeup like that. They were not contouring. I was just looking at them. I'm like, wow. Like, they were so beautiful, so elegant.
Is this where heaven is?
So dark and all that. but also quite traditional in the very sense of the word.
Okay.
It's a Muslim country, and
Decent.
yeah, so there's also that decency. You know what it means when, you know, a country is like a Muslim country. They are more conservative in a way, in how they are. So it was very interesting to see the different cultures, and that whetted my appetite to travel more, because you never really, there's something about travel that you really cannot explain in words. You know,
it's you being there and
exactly.
the moment.
You just need you need to experience the place. You need to experience the place, to experience the people, to feel the culture, the air, everything else. It was also quite advanced in terms of arts and culture. There are very like high profile, very good artists there. We also had, at that time, spoken word was a thing, so we also had good spoken word artists. Yeah, it was interesting. World-renowned fashion designers there at that point in time.
Wow.
Mark you, at this time, in Kenya, I mean, we also had fashion designers, but you wouldn't be able to say world acclaimed or world famous.
It's true that.
You know,
True that, yeah.
so I could see the areas in which Kenya had a long way to go. You know,
Did you take some pictures in Senegal that we can share on the podcast?
Yes, with a goat. It was a big goat.
How big?
It was a big goat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you ready to come back from Senegal now?
Yes, we can come back.
All right. Now you come back, and as always, you package the stories, and they air on one of the most important shows called African Journal, Reuters African Journal. Where do you go next?
Wow. Okay. I think from there it's just been a whirlwind, because from there I was able to travel to South Africa and Lesotho. I've been to Rwanda. I've been to Zambia.
Yeah.
I've been to Tanzania. So different countries. And Ethiopia as well. Ethiopia was also quite stood out for me, because Ethiopians are very warm. They are very, very warm, very hospitable. They're always fighting to buy you lunch.
Which is good.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting. And also the air is just a bit different. You know, you've been there. Most of them don't speak English. You know, they have their own numerals. They have
even
everything.
their own Christmas.
Yes.
They don't celebrate with us. I think they celebrated it last week.
Yeah. So it's interesting to go to a country that has never been colonized and see also the differences. They're very proud of their heritage and their culture.
Did you go to Ethiopia during the African Union Head of State Summit, or it was a different thing?
There was an African Union summit, but it was about land policy.
Okay.
So yes and no. But I also got to move around a bit and cover a few stories for of course, our show.
Tell us where you went to in Ethiopia, because I've also been to Ethiopia, and like you say, I agree with you 100%. And Ethiopia beer is also cheap than Kenyan beer. I meet a number of Kenyans working in Ethiopia, either on an individual capacity or sent by their companies, all working for the Economic Commission of Africa or the African Union itself.
African Union, yeah.
And for me, like you say, I had an interaction with an artist who was like a cool artist. Like I know, again, like you say, we have very good artists here in Kenya. But the guy was a very old man, and I think he was using a feather to draw heads of state. So I think his art is displayed at the African Union as one of the honors to him. But tell us, what did you do in Ethiopia?
Let me tell you, I like that you brought that up, because I did I mostly stayed actually in Addis. I didn't have time to go deeper or away from wherever, because as you remember, I had gone to cover a summit, but I had extended a few days just to see what else I could cover within the country. So anyway, I stayed, most of my stay was in Addis. I got to meet very nice, interesting people. One of them was actually a paralyzed artist who used to paint with his mouth. In fact, it was a story that was done by my colleague, but I had to go back and do a follow-up. Yeah. So I'm telling you, this person has the best attitude, very warm, very smiley. I'm just looking at them, I'm wondering, wow, if life handed me these cards, I don't know. And quite talented. So it's really interesting to also move around and look at and actually witness for yourself the resilience of the human spirit. Yeah, so that, of course, stood out for me. It was quite interesting to see how They also make their own cotton fabrics with the looms and everything. That was quite interesting to see as well. Their coffee culture.
That is the best for me.
Yeah.
Like on the streets.
Yes.
With the
everywhere.
popcorns. Why is it served with popcorns?
I have no idea.
You should have done that.
I have no idea. Yeah, that's a story to pursue next time. Yeah, but just so interesting to see that at noon everyone takes a break to take coffee.
Coffee time. Coffee time. There's one thing I want to ask you. In most times, like when we worked for the African Journal, you'd go and do stories because they are good stories. They are in the grassroots most of the times. It's not stories that sometimes I used to work out work permits, and then I'm like, why did I even have not a work permit, like a filming permit? Because you are going to the rural areas, no one even knows you. Everyone is excited to see you. But I always, when we publish the stories, because of the reach and all that, because for me, I never lose my contacts. Even the people I interviewed when I was in Ethiopia 10 years ago, I still talk to them, some of them. And someone will tell you, hey, boss, thank you very much. But someone is calling me from UK telling me that they saw my story. And I'm like, wow, I didn't intend to do marketing because that is not my job. And again, if I was doing marketing, I would have charged you. But I'm happy to help a good cause get advanced. Did you interact with something like that? Did you get someone calling you back? Because I think we always used to share our stories when they are published with our audience. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I have a few moments of that. But let me tell you, let me give you a different experience that I had.
Yeah.
Now, while I was doing Africa Journal, you would find that at that point it wasn't airing in Kenya.
Yeah.
So I am going to the field, right? In my mind, I know I am very anonymous.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So you go to the field, you're just there, like just being in the field, doing whatever. And people are coming to you, and you wonder, why are people staring, why are people coming to you? All the time. They're like,
where is the politician?
Are you the presenter? It was a very surreal experience.
Wow.
I just found it very interesting, and how, I don't know. It was very hard for me to reconcile that. So, the power of storytelling and the visibility that you have sometimes, you don't appreciate it until
when you get
later on or when you're in such a situation. But then the good thing is that it also opens doors, because then you don't have to explain so much about who you are, what you do, and all that. You can appreciate the difficulty of sometimes just trying to tell people this is who you are, and maybe they don't know you. They've not interacted.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yes, they haven't interacted with your platform. So a little bit of that visibility helps. Yeah. When people can be able to relate you with the brand of what you do.
The fun thing with journalism, you can be dining with kings in the morning and being whipped by policemen on the streets in the evening.
Yes.
So did you encounter such kind of difficulties? Because for me, I was very much into the political and chaotic kind of storytelling. I literally would experience that. Maybe you have, a very good meeting with heads of state at State House, because maybe the Pope came or Obama came. I covered both of them when they came to Kenya. And then in the evening, you are on the streets because Baba has called for a demonstration.
So for me, I've covered dignitaries and I've interviewed important people, and I feel like you have access as a journalist because of the nature of your work.
Yeah.
And I feel like that doesn't make your life interesting. Let me tell you what happened to me.
Yeah.
In Lesotho.
You went to the palace?
In Lesotho, I remember I sought whatever permits needed to be sought and everything. I tried doing whatever I could. And of course, as with many African organizations and governments, there's a lot of waiting around, red tape, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was running out of time. I was running out of money. Yeah. We had driven down from South Africa. We entered to Lesotho. One of the stories we were doing was about rock art. Rock art.
You did a lot of art stories, yeah?
Yes. So while doing so the rock art is the ancient drawings of.
Yeah.
So while we were there, there's a lady who called us from the Ministry of Culture. Told us, what are you doing there? We had to drive back to
to the town, to the
No,
city?
we had to drive back to South Africa because had we stayed longer, we would have gotten
been
arrested. Yeah.
You would have stayed there and get arrested.
Yeah.
Would have sent our military to come rescue you.
Yeah, and I still had, you know how we work with a tight schedule.
Yeah, sure.
I still had stuff to cover back in SA. So it's like, I'm not hanging around to find out
exactly,
as a foreigner.
You lose your time. And,
exactly. Another unsavory experience I had was when I was working with the local media house, and we had to do a production for an educational show. So they had invited us, the IUCA, that's the Inter-University Council of East Africa, was celebrating their 50th jubilee, their 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
In Kampala. And so they invited us to do some productions with them. We went. Tell me why we were not detained at immigration for hours. Like, we landed at 8.
Oh, no.
They had us locked up until 9 p.m. Now, the stressful thing about this is that I was the I guess, head of delegation because I was the producer.
So you had to, Everyone is like, you told us everything is okay, so what is happening here?
Everyone was like, producer, do something.
Exactly.
Do something, producer. Do something. And it's so hard because, on the one hand, you're dealing with a very moody security personnel.
And very entitled as well, if I may say that.
Yes.
For me, I see the entitlement.
Exactly. A security personnel in a different country who has gotten instructions, and the moment everything was okay until they saw that you're a journalist. So I think what had happened before was that there was a lot of, there were a bit of skirmishes here and there because at some point guys were sharing content on social media about security people shooting into people's houses around the time because it was around, I guess, campaigns.
Okay.
So there's some issues here and there, and they were getting a lot of coverage from international media houses.
Okay.
They had really picked it up. So they were not accepting any foreign media. And the moment they saw we are journalists, that's when our trouble started. Yeah. Please remember, the entity that had invited us is like, it has links to the government. It's like, it's the International University Council for East Africa.
Okay.
So you're not anticipating.
Thank
you. You're not anticipating those kinds of issues, and especially since it was a production we were doing, not a news story. So we stayed in the cell. It was so interesting.
How was that cell? You know that is a cell in another country. You can tell us. Have you ever been arrested in Kenya?
No.
Okay. How was the cell there? I will tell you how Kenyan cells are because I've been arrested.
So I think mine was better, if I'm being honest, because it had a mattress.
Okay.
It had a very sketchy-looking blanket, but it was a blanket.
No bed bugs?
Well, I didn't look hard enough because I had no choice. I didn't want to look hard enough.
Okay.
So luckily, I had gotten into crocheting. So I decided to just crochet to
That's how you
calm myself.
Time.
Yes, to calm myself down in the midst of waiting, calling the office, waiting for, because, of course, they won't tell you no. They'll tell you, do you have accreditation? Yes, we do. From where? Oh, no, not this one, the other one. Okay, if you're not getting accreditation, we're sending you back to Nairobi. So now you're making calls. The person who invited you, okay, are you able to get accreditation? Oh, and mark you, the people, their council, the media council have been instructed, don't accredit any foreign journalist. You get. So they keep asking for things. Get me a letter from your company. So I'm there calling through WhatsApp. And you know how that WhatsApp works. If the person doesn't have internet, so I'm there calling through WhatsApp, telling people, hey, I need this, I need this. Mark you, people are not there for you. Like, they have their work. They have their day job that they need to do. So you find that they have priorities.
Maybe it's news. It's
exactly my point.
But you see what I used to do? Whenever I was traveling, I would carry all the signatures and stamps for my company. So you tell me, get me a letter from your company, and then I send it through my email. They have sent it. As in, I came out of a number of issues out of that, although it's crazy because
Yeah.
sometimes if it's detected, you will be just in the next flight back.
Now, at that point, please remember, we're not allowed to have anything like laptops and everything. You get?
So you have
your
to,
luggage. Yeah, your luggage is somewhere.
It's actually at the luggage, whatever. You
Thank
have not
you.
picked your luggage.
Yeah, it's over. We had picked, but it was somewhere.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you have to follow
Kwa
instructions.
hiyo wakati wewe ni mahabusu.
Thank you.
You are a prisoner.
You have no rights. You have
So
no
that
rights.
end.
So after a lot of communication with the whatever, oh my God, the people I was with were panicking.
Yeah.
It was so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think for me, because I was so hungry, I had been up till from 3 a.m. because I had to catch that flight, and I was of course in economy, so I really didn't have So, and I was really looking forward to just land, sleep, shower, all that, and then now start the production. So I was very tired. I was feeling out of it. I wasn't even feeling well, actually, physically. So I was just surviving. I don't know how to explain it. It's like you're on autopilot. So in the end, what had happened was the person who was trying to push my accreditation from the Ugandan side gave up.
He or she was not supposed to give up. Was supposed to come up with a solution.
I think the person was more of like a junior person. You know,
okay.
when you have a lot of...
Don't
So
care
I
anymore.
think he escalated it to not the next person. In the end, I was talking to one of the leaderships of that council, who told me, actually, don't worry. Now I'm speaking to the commissioner of the immigration. You get? So it's like one escalation after another, after another, after another.
Next one, you're speaking to the president.
I know. So the soldiers just looking at us saying, I highly doubt you'll stay here. I think you'll be deported back.
Yeah.
You know? So he was just looking at us over there. Mark you, while I was here, there was also like a Kenyan blogger. I don't know why she said she was a journalist, but she said she was a journalist.
Yeah.
So she was thrown into my cell.
Oh.
And now she starts recording because she knows her rights.
Oh.
And now they started roughing her up. They started confiscating her laptop, her what. It was so scary to see. So I'm like, okay, listen, calm down. So she's there, she's crying.
You go to some places, you forget you know your rights. Eh?
Yeah.
You
So
just
I'm
calm
there,
down
I'm
a
trying
bit.
to calm her down. But even me, I'm so spooked. She's in my cell now. So now we are advising her. She's saying, oh, I was here. Anyway, they deported her.
Oh.
And she had to pay for her tickets.
Oof.
And she didn't, and she said she
You
had
will sue them? Oh.
she had come she
I'll
had come
sue
to
you.
attend she had actually come to attend like a summit or a workshop.
Yeah.
Anyway, so basically I saw firsthand what happens if you start fighting. If you
Sometimes
start,
you cool down.
yeah, you're like, okay, guys, we are not in our country. We don't have rights here.
Yeah.
And even on the male side of the cells, we could see people who've been there for days. Like, yeah.
It's crazy.
And they tell you, if you have money, go and buy food. But where do you buy food? And where do you get money?
Where do you get the money from? And they have already thrown you into the into isolation, into the cells.
Yeah, maybe you just need to enter into the country so that you can access your money. And where do you buy anyway? I just felt bad for people who've been... Guys, pray for people who are in immigration cells. It's not easy. So anyway, finally, I don't know if it's the head of...
I'm like, okay, Kenyan cells are worse than that. The head of immigration.
Anyway, so we were released finally.
Yeah.
They pulled strings, big people over there.
Brings
and I guess the head of immigration or the deputy head of immigration or someone came to open for us himself. Like he came to whatever. And just, it kinda...
Did you look at the policeman at the cell and you're like, I told ya, I would have done that.
He was done with his shifts.
Oh, okay. So it's a different person. I'll have like, I told ya.
We were so relieved. We didn't care. We just wanted to go. Oh
let's
my
go
God.
and do our job.
We just wanted to go and shower.
Yeah.
You've not showered.
And you've been
man. It was not easy.
But there was no barrier, communication barrier.
No.
They speak as good English.
No. Anyway, from there, everything went well. We were booked into a nice hotel. We showered. We ate. Now we can talk about it, but when it was happening, it was not Nini. So these are some of the things that journalists experience,
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe I'm glad it happened in Uganda. Uganda is close enough. So you can imagine being detained in a far-off country. Maybe you have language barrier. You're not sure why you're being detained and all that.
They detained me in Gambia.
Imagine.
A whole day.
How was that?
I was like, they gave me my laptop, and they're telling me the same way. Like, boss, if that guy you're telling us, I had a friend from the press union, the Gambia press union, with my accreditation. But these guys don't connect me to internet, so I cannot even.
You can't,
but at some point, one of the guys agreed to give me his phone, and I called the guy, and he was like, "I'm coming, but there's a lot of traffic." So I said, and they are like, "We are going to take you back to Kenya in the next flight."
Imagine.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
There's
do
nothing
whatever
you
you
can
want.
do, yeah.
As in, if you want to deport me, you'll deport me.
Yeah.
If you want me to stay here, I will stay here until when my guy comes. So what can I do? I just stayed in the holding point. They never put me inside a cell, though. I was just in the holding point. And it's not a very good experience.
It's not a good experience.
Quickly, because Chrystal is going to come back here to tell us more stories of how you started your journalism, what was the interest from when you were growing up. But quickly tell us, what are the dynamics, journalism dynamics that have changed recently, and how have they affected your day-to-day as a journalist?
Okay, so I can say that we've had a lot of upheavals, first of all, in the industry in Kenya. Unfortunately, one of the organizations I worked for no longer exists because, pressures.
Things happen.
Yes. So, that also makes you sober up and like, okay, this is a very dynamic industry and you need to update yourself. With the shift to digital, of course, we've had a lot of changes. But then, on the one hand, where you see a lot of restructuring, layoffs and all that, I've been a victim of one restructuring process. But then on the other hand, it makes your organization more agile because some organizations are very, very rigid. Now you see them trying new things, you see them experimenting. I myself have been able to, of course, upskill, learn new skills. I actually even ended up getting a master's degree in digital journalism. And it was a very good experience for me because I got to interact with different colleagues from different institutions. Of course, find things that are common between us and things that are different. So you get to learn more about what's happening within your industry. Lately, of course, we've had AI. AI is going to touch every
job sector, actually.
Basically,
every job sector,
So, but right now I'm looking at it I'm taking it positively because it can also increase your efficiency.
I love it.
Things like transcriptions.
We used to transcribe the whole week.
Yes.
Now
you just need
as simple as 1 to 3.
Yes. So efficiency, of course, is improving in terms of that. So the thing is just to learn and see where else you can plug in and how you can use that to make your work easier. But I think I'm happy for the future. But I think the journalism space is going to change. It won't be the same way we see it. In fact, I think there's even a course we took together whereby we're like, they were saying we are looking into a future whereby professionals are going to be trained on how to write and how to be a journalist. And I think that's already happening. With content creation, everyone can create content about everything. I learn a lot about, finance and the finance industry.
We did the BMIA together.
Yes.
The Bloomberg Media Initiative Africa.
Yes. So right now we have a lot of content creators, and I get to learn a lot. I mean, my investing decisions. I've been able to
content
get from
online.
there. So I don't need to pay for consultation or I don't need to pay an expert because there's a lot of content online. People who are good at what they do, they're actually sharing content and you're able to learn. And I feel like that's now the future of journalism. But I think journalists are still relevant because credibility.
That's what I wanted you to come to. Because even for ourselves, like I was saying, when you wake up in the morning and you're checking the internationals, and of course you get a lot of feeds from, especially for me it's X, I get a lot of feeds from X, and then the memes from TikTok. But now I still go back to Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, DW, because I really want it to have some authenticity. It's not just picking information from anywhere.
Exactly. So journalism is here to stay. It's just that the medium and the way that the message will be conveyed or the news will be conveyed would be a bit different, even in terms of not only the dissemination but also the consumption of the media will be a little bit different. But journalism still has a place because everyone craves authentic and credible news.
Yeah.
Especially now that we have deep fakes. With AI, have you seen the AI videos? You can't be able to tell the difference between an authentic video and an AI generated video. So the only thing that at least would help us is if you're not so sure about what you've seen online, you may be able to maybe watch the media and then you can be able to know this is credible, this is not credible. Also, media houses nowadays, we have new products that were not there before.
Yeah, sure.
Verify, like BBC have BBC Verify.
Yeah. Which is actually there throughout.
Exactly.
For any piece that is coming in from that is not
exactly
being verified.
So that the popular news that you see out here and you're not sure whether it's credible, whether it's AI, whether it's generated elsewhere. Then we have now people who are debunking and explaining and investigating the authenticity of some of the news that we are seeing out here. So that's how now I guess journalism is evolving.
Well, Lily, thank you so very much. You want to tell us in 2 minutes the funniest story that you ever worked on?
Oh, my God.
So that you can wind up and give you a chance to come back next time and tell us your journey to journalism.
The funniest story I've worked on, that's a hard one. Like, I have to think about it.
No, think about it.
But I can tell you of an interesting story I worked on.
Go on.
Well, in South Africa, witch doctors are considered, they are actually recognized as healthcare providers by their Ministry of Health. Like, it's actually a thing.
Okay.
So they call them Sangomas. And I did that story for Africa Journal.
You are the Sangoma producer.
So, guys, I went to see this Sangoma. It was an interesting experience for me because I had never been in such a setting with such a person, and it was so interesting to see them. They actually pray before they do their thing. Yeah. They throw their bones. Yeah. That one was throwing bones so that the ancestors can diagnose you.
They give you a chance to throw a bone as well with them?
The Sangoma is the one qualified to throw the bones. Okay. Anyway, so the Sangoma told me, now I had to do a PTC, piece to camera. Yeah, and they gave me a bit of their muti. Muti is what they call the concoction or like the herbs. Yeah. So they gave me the muti. She told me you need to lick. So I put a bit over here and I licked and I did my PTC. Now, the next place I was going to shoot was a muti market. Okay. A market where it's made now, like that. Yeah, where they get the raw materials to make their potions and to make their herbs and what have you. Let me tell you something. The moment we landed into that market, there was a stench. Ooh. When I entered the market, guys, the first thing I saw, monkey heads, snakes, lizards, like
and they are legal? They are allowed to do that?
Yeah, it's a market. It's a muti market, a market where witch doctors or sangomas, I don't know if witch doctor is the right word to say, but herbalists, witch doctors, traditional healers, they go there to shop. So they go there to shop for the ingredients. It's like going to the market to buy things for your kitchen. You'll buy tomatoes, you'll buy onions, you'll buy capsicum, all that, vegetables. That's where they go to buy their things. Okay. So imagine me seeing their dried snake, heads of baboons, monkeys.
And you're like, what was your first thought?
I was like, oh my God, what did I leak? What did I leak? Oh my God. And this person will not tell me, inside your portion it has one lizard, half a nose of a baboon. They won't tell me that. Because it's fine powder.
Wow.
Anyway, my consolation is that the powder had a bit of green, so I'm just really assuming that it's only plants that I took, guys.
Well, at the Muti market story, we'll wind up a Global Mic today. Remember, we are going to bring you more stories from journalists like Chrystal, and today we are going to wind it up there. This is the Global Mic. a podcast that will be bringing you stories from storytellers, journalists, filmmakers, and will make you get amazed. See you next time.